Greetings, CBC. Welcome to this week's Sunday warm-up. I am really looking forward to being back in the pulpit this week and back with you this weekend for our worship services. I want to thank Matt from this past week, and once again thank Tom from about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, a couple of Sundays off within this last month. Those will be the last Sundays I have off here till sometime in July, I think. So we're just going to keep moving forward in Romans and really just walking slowly through this book together. And we pick up this week in Romans chapter 7. God willing, we will finish the chapter. There's quite a bit before us, but I think we can cover it. Romans 7 verses 7 to 25 is what we'll be looking at. Now I want to give you kind of two parts to a way to consider in warming up for this week. First part would just be a very simple, okay, here's a simple approach to this week to get yourself ready in some way. The second warm-up idea would be going a little more in depth, because I'll be honest with you out of the gate this week, there's a lot. There's quite a bit of almost even just tricky ways in which Paul's, I think, navigating the relationship between law and gospel. And a lot of this, I think, really comes from almost like Paul's testimony as you read this. Paul wrestling with his own relationship to the law and the grace of God as Paul was seeing this, as Paul was being convicted. And so it's tricky with Paul's wording and language, but it's also very personal in what we see coming from the Apostle Paul. So I pray we can hear all of that this Sunday. And I'm really working hard in thinking about how it is that we're going to approach this Sunday to try and simplify down what I see to be some of the challenges and the core messages out of this text, but also to be able to spend some in-depth time on Sunday morning, almost Bible study like. I really, really encourage you, and I'm going to make some extra copies of the sermon notes this week and try to push the sermon notes out to everyone as possible. I encourage you to get a copy and really follow along together on this. This will definitely be one of those weeks where people could just sit and listen, scratch your heads and say, I didn't get anything out of that. Remember, I'm not going to own that. If you didn't put anything into it, it makes sense that we won't get anything out of it. So all that being said, here's the simple approach. Remember, we're picking up in the middle of a chapter, in the middle, almost getting close to the middle of the whole book. So as we begin in Romans 7, verse 7 this week, we need to back up a second and remind ourselves of chapter 7, verse 6. I'll read it for us now. But now we are released from the law, Romans 7, verse 6. Having died to that which held us captive, so that we serve in the new way of the Spirit and not in the old way of the written code. So wrestle with that verse there as it leads us into then this next what then question. What shall we say then? That the law is sin? We're going to see two of those kinds of questions, two by no means. So is the law sin then? We're not bound by this written code anymore. So take a look at, this is still the simplistic kind of warm up, Romans 7 verse 6. Jeremiah 31 verses 31 to 34, and Galatians chapter 5 verse 18. And then from there, we're going to read Romans 7 verses 7 to 25. And then the very basic outline we're going to be looking at is number one from that text. What is the purpose of the law? We want to talk about that. Secondly, did the law bring death? And then thirdly, really kind of looking at Paul's testimony where, and I'm going to phrase it this way, I think, I don't understand myself. Who will deliver me? I don't understand myself. Who will deliver me? So that'll be kind of the more simplistic preparation approach. If you can make some time this week to go more in depth, I want to offer you that very same thing, plus marking these passages ahead of time and reading these and really spending some time looking at them. So again, here's what we're doing. This is the more in-depth second part here of the Sunday warm-up. Number one, consider the new way of the Spirit. Again, Romans 7 verse 6, Jeremiah 31 to 34, Galatians 5, 18. And then our text before us, Romans 7 verses 7 to 25. The real meat of this sermon this week is going to come in this first point. What is the purpose of the law? And so to understand the purpose of the law, look at Paul's summary statement or kind of conclusion statement in verse 12, Romans 7, verse 12. Look what Paul says about the law there. And then also look at how Paul describes the law as our guardian in Galatians chapter 3, verses 23 to 29. Galatians 3, 23 to 29. And how Paul says here in Romans 7, 7 to 11, that the law taught me what sin is. And then we want to look at what is the law. We're going to take a little bit of time talking about what is the law. We get kind of hung up on this. We get confused, and we go between extremes of anti-law. We don't follow law. We need to get rid of law, and then becoming too legalistic. And so we want to look at what is the law. I'd encourage you to take some time this week to look at these passages. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 21. That's the Ten Commandments. Look again at the moral parts of the law in Leviticus. Leviticus hangs people up a lot. There's a lot of confusion, and people will love to throw out, excuse me, you follow the Old Testament, or you believe this particular part about the moral law, therefore why aren't you sacrificing goats anymore? It's a real misunderstanding about what we have given to us of the law of God in the Old Testament. So look at Leviticus 18 to 20. That's descriptions of the moral law. Again, we're going to talk some details about this. Look at Matthew 5 to 7. There's Jesus essentially, almost like Moses did in offering the Ten Commandments in the law. There's Jesus going up on the mount and offering us what we have as the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5 to 7. His giving us of the law that goes deep into the heart as well. And then look at Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 to 40, where Jesus is being asked about what is the greatest of commandments, what is the greatest of law. So take a look at those. If again, I would encourage you just a little extra time if you can. I forgot to put these down. I'm going to write them down now. But Psalm chapter 1, Psalm chapter 19, and even just the first part of Psalm 119. Psalm 119 is a lot, but that's going to give us a little more of like the heart, the psalmist heart and love for the law of God. I think that's enough. I think that's good. That's a lot before us. If you can take some time this week to look at those passages, again, I would mark them ahead of time. We're not going to necessarily turn to every one of those. We will reference them. It'll really serve you well to go in depth in all of those. And then as we close, we're going to look at Paul's really just that personal, as we've kind of lovingly referred to here, the do passage. We're going to look at that, and we're going to look at Paul's honest reflection of his own heart, flesh, life, this war raging battle between the law of God and the sinful flesh, or as he says here a couple of times, sin that's seizing the opportunity. And so we're going to wrestle with quite a bit this Sunday. Looking forward to it very, very much as we finish up Romans chapter 7. Now, a little longer than I wanted to go, but let me just throw a couple of things at you real quickly via announcement. Hopefully, if you made it this far. This Sunday, quite a bit going on. There's food pantry right after service, after second service. At 2 o'clock here at the church, we'll be having a memorial service for my grandma here at 2. And then because of all that, there'll be no Sunday evening services this week. And then also keep in mind, Wednesday, May the 1st at 7 o'clock is the prayer service. And Saturday, May the 4th, Saturday morning, we'll be here from like 8 to 11. If you can come for any part of that, just to help out with the spring kind of cleanup. And our main focus, depending on the numbers we get, but our main focus will be finishing up, if we can, building a couple of the playground items and equipment for the daycare. And I want to get the pavilion cleaned up and all around there, because we have quite a few graduation parties from our church this year that'll be using the pavilion, and so we want to get that up and ready, because in the coming weeks there's going to be we're going to start having graduation parties out there, and so we want to get all that done. So if you're able to help out and be a part of any of that on Saturday, May the 4th from 8 to 11 that morning, we'll have donuts, we'll have coffee, and we will do some work here together. All right, that's it. God bless you. I have a lot there before us. I'm excited to be back and really excited to get into the Word together with you this week. Prayers for you, prayers for our time together in worship, and that's it. All right, God bless you. Have a great week.